Okay. How does this look, Maddie? Does this look okay? Everybody's screen looks okay. We can see this thing. I don't really like going into details of, wait, are you approving me to record,
Yeah,
Maddie?
everything's great.
That's right. Everything's great. We were so technical difficulties. I don't know. But so today, this was a request actually from some of our members of people who are wondering. Hey, Skylar, people wondering about what should I do if I'm biohacking? So we're going to introduce ourselves really quickly and kind of go through this biohacking culture and who are we and why are we the right people to kind of talk about it. So I will start. So, co-founder of Rev Health, and one of the things that I did a couple of years ago is I reversed my biological age 15 years by biohacking. But interestingly enough, I had a very balanced approach to it. And then as I was trying to continue to reverse my age, I was running into some problems where I was actually making my cardiovascular health worse. And it's how Maddie and I met because she had some Chinese medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and functional medicine expertise that brought that in. For many, many years, I've been doing consultancy and many startups. And so, one of the key things that was happening to me in my life is founders and executives and leaders at big companies asking me, how can I have purpose and joy in my life? Right. So inevitably it's like I'm doing marketing strategy, but at some point somebody says, my life is really chaotic. It's very stressful. I'm on a plane all the time. And how do I make time to be more efficient or happy and get it all done? So I've got some tips. We'll talk about that later. And then Maddie.
Yes, I'm Madeline Cunningham, or Maddie, and I'm the other co-founder of Rev Health. And as Julie mentioned, I'm a licensed acupuncturist, herbalist, and functional medicine specialist. And I've helped both myself and hundreds of my own clients in my private practice previously, and now through Rev, really find health optimization. And the questions that we get asked a lot about biohacking, I hope that I can bring and that Julie and I can bring together a lot more of a grounded perspective, a lot less noisy perspective. This is stuff that we is kind of our bread and butter and what our philosophy is all about at Rev. So I'm really happy to be having this discussion today with everyone.
Yeah. And please feel free to, if you have a question, you can raise your hand or put something in the comments and we'll leave time. All right.
Yes. We will go ahead and get started. I mean, if we're just looking at this image on the left, that this is where we really are in the biohacking space. The biohacking space is really correlated right now with the longevity space, that people are using lots of tools, lots of different biohacks, and I use that with a lot of quotes, and we'll talk about why, to really hack their body's biology into functioning better. So the premise of this philosophy is how can I use something external from my body to make me healthier and to support my longevity? Usually this is through tools, through supplements. We see Brian Johnson here. He is pretty notorious in the longevity world for calculating every single calorie he eats, every supplement he takes, every movement he does in order to support his longevity. And this is through different tools, lots of technology, IVs, you name it. And then we have this image here on the right of the average 80-year-old Greek man who's smoking, who's drinking, who's out in the sun, who's tan. And there doesn't really seem to be a whole lot in the middle between these things. But we see this man on the right. And for some people, really relate to this. We're seeing people in the blue zones that do live really well and that do live really long that aren't doing this super technical, really rigid approach to well-being. So, can we bridge the gap here? And what is this whole philosophy of biohacking? When we look towards the right, this is really the philosophy of traditional Chinese medicine, the symbolism of yin within yang. And yin and yang are just their opposites and their dualities that ultimately come together and are intertwined. And what that means is just through balance. So instead of leaning on this approach that's really biohacking forward, really gadget heavy, really almost sci-fi-ish, can we lean into a philosophy that really believes that when we take care of our bodies and when our bodies are in balance, then we can trust our bodies to provide the most health and the most longevity for us? rather than using things to biohack our way out of our body's inherent nature and wisdom. TCM firmly believes the body is the smartest, most capable vessel. And the more we can take care of it and nurture it, the less we need these tools in order to help support our longevity and biohacking. So at Rev, we really embody this approach, which is let's focus on optimization of the body, let's focus on a lot of balance and nurturing versus what are the tools that you can kind of blindly throw at your body to make it do something that a study once said it can do. So just the inherent nature of the lens that we're coming to this conversation with. So why extreme hacks can really backfire. And Julie sent me this image today, which I just think is amazing. And for those of you who haven't, urine therapy is a real thing. So if you are brave, you are welcome to Google it. But it is, again, we're seeing these like extremes in the longevity space and the biohacking space that people are thinking that it's a reasonable thing to do to consume or utilize their own urine for the sake of their health, when we're usually missing even the foundation of physical and emotional well-being. So, in my opinion, I think we've just got it so backwards. And why these extreme hacks can backfire, cold plunges, these fasting windows, twice a day workouts. This is so common with so many of our members. They hear about these things that promote resilience, and sometimes they can. But if we're existing in a body that's already out of alignment, that's already out of balance, like we saw in that first image, if that picture is skewed, a lot of these biohacks can put people into more depletion, into more of a stress response. So it's not providing the balance that you're seeking. In fact, it's making things go a little bit more haywire. And there's this study from Harvard that exclaims there is this paradox of good stress, that stress becomes harmful when it's applied too frequently or too much without little recovery. So we know a little stress is a good thing. Workouts are a form of stress. Even emotional growth is a form of stress, which can be wildly uncomfortable at times. But if we're doing this too much and it's too dysregulating, there is no room to actually bring back into balance and to change your set point of health. It's just continuous dysregulation. So from a TCM, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Julie.
Well, it's like even the autophagy, everyone's talking about how can I build more resilience in my cells? And so I'm like, I'm going to do the cold plunge, and that's purposeful. And again, it's maybe depending on your physiology, maybe not, right? We have to, this is why we'll go into it, like looking at your labs really helps. But if it's becoming this extreme thing where now you're like every day, it's like, okay, I'm at 30 degrees temperature, and tomorrow I'm going to be at 25, and tomorrow I'm at 20. And now I'm going to throw myself in an Alaskan ocean in the middle of the winter to just keep testing it. This becomes like this obsessive, really bad stress, and it's going to end up backfiring. And that's when you've seen that, Maddie, in people's labs too.
Yeah, of course. I see a lot of people who are sort of blindly following the suggestions in the longevity space. And when we take an in-depth look at their labs, whether it's through their blood work or their cortisol test or their gut microbiome, their body's really, really suffering to keep up with what is supposed to be a health regimen. And that's when we know we have a problem.
Yeah.
So in TCM, this perspective of overuse, whether it's cold or heat or restriction, it really drains what's our vital energy. In TCM, this energy, our life force energy, it is really strong when we're born, and it decreases throughout our life until our death. And this energy is stored in our kidneys. So the kidneys in TCM are the most important organs to protect. And when we are constantly exerting and restricting, it puts so much stress on our kidneys. And we see this in Western medicine too. Our kidneys balance our electrolytes and they manage our blood pressure. And our adrenal glands, which are our stress response glands, sit on top of our kidneys. And we know the importance in Western medicine of chronic stress on the body. So TCM was really ahead of the game on this, saying we really need to protect our kidneys and our life force energy if we even want vitality. So something really important to think about.
Okay.
Yes. Stacy Sim, one of our faves. She is an exercise physiologist, PhD, absolutely brilliant, recently on the Andrew Huberman podcast. And she's famous for quoting, "Women are not small men." And I think for a long time, we tried to equate women's health to men's health, and men are more frequently studied than women. So we were trying to fit women's biology into a whole industry and medical field that's really run and studied by men. TCM, there's two very inherent differences between men and women. If we go back, even if you don't mind actually, Julie, scrolling up to looking at that picture again of the circle in TCM, because it might help explain this a little bit more. So this image here, the dark part is more of our yin side. This is more the feminine side, and the light part is yang, it's masculine. All this means yin, yang, masculine, feminine, they're just opposites. That's all we're talking about here. But as you can see, there's these two circles within each one. So we all have a little bit of the other side within us. They have to be intertwined. There's no separating them. But women on this side and men on this side, we can't pretend these two things are the same. They're not. So if we scroll back to this other slide, Stacy Sims is talking about more regularly now how things like maybe cold plunges aren't so suitable for women. If we think about that opposite polarity, this yin side, yin is cool and dark. It's very constricting. So are we going to add in another element of cold that makes you constrict? That's not going to provide more balance for women. It's going to put you farther on the end of that spectrum and likely put you farther out of balance. This is why cold plunging usually a lot more suitable for men. They're on the opposite end of the spectrum. So when we talk about women's health, especially if you're trying to conceive, especially if you're menstruating, cold plunges are very, very hard on women's bodies for that reason. If it's really, when you start to visualize that circle, you can break down things really easily. So TCM for women, you want to focus a lot more on heat. You want to focus on less cold exposures, and being able to bring up the body's yang energy, that opposite polarity, which is usually more expansion and more heat. So that tends to be better for longevity for women.
And that podcast, which is kind of went viral with Andrew Huberman and Stacey Sims recently, where there are studies, including from Stanford, backing this up from a functional medicine perspective as well. So, we know that some people are like, oh, I don't know how about this whole TCM thing. Well, there are studies for Western and functional medicine right now. It's women doing a lot of cold plunges, and it's causing more inflammation, more issues, like more, infertility. It's problematic. And again, it's like just these super extremes, not one size fits all.
Mhm. Absolutely.
That's the problem. We are all different. I'm going to move on here.
That's right.
I feel like I know this. I feel like I know guys like on the right.
Yes. The inherent competitive nature. Yes. Please exit the sauna. If it is too much, no one will think anything differently of you.
We'll keep turning it up.
That's
Or what was we even had this at a retreat in Vermont, where there were some people at the retreat that kept throwing more water on the coals. And it's like, it's already really hot in here, guys.
yeah, we're good.
Keep making it hotter and hotter.
Yes, and men need balance too. So again, if we're thinking about that opposite end of the spectrum, heat can sometimes be really problematic for men. And studies, like Julie said as well, there are lots of really well formulated studies that are documenting this at this point, that when men overutilize saunas, it can really affect their sperm count. So again, when we're seeing that polarity, I mean, TCM was so ahead of the game that if we're applying too much, again, of heat to a polarity that already is going in that direction, too much of a good thing is not a good thing. So for men, that's why cold plunges tend to work a lot better. They tend to need more of that cold energy, more constriction in their bodies, in a body that's usually really expansive. So this quote says here, our data demonstrated for the first time that sauna exposure induces a significant impairment in spermatogenesis. I mean, this is huge implications, especially as more biohacking tools come on the market about men trying to conceive. And this is something that we've really worked with our members. If you want to have, especially, we know men and women, but men, if you want to have children within the next 3 months, to be significantly reducing your sauna use, not be going in hot tubs, making sure you're wearing clothing that isn't super, super tight around the waistline, keeping things really breathable, doing a lot more stretching, and cold plunges might be more beneficial during that time.
That's right. Moving on with this. Aha.
Yes, our wearables. So wearables, this has now become such a phenomenon. More people are wearing wearables than not these days. And it has done so much good. People are being able to track their data more regularly. They can see how their body's performing, and that has a lot of benefit. But when we're using data to separate ourselves from our body more rather than come closer together to it, that's when we start to get into a problem. So we're seeing orthosomnia as a form of sleep anxiety, overfixation on a data tracker. This is so common. People who get so nervous about their sleep scores, and sometimes when they even have a poor night's sleep, they'll be nervous to check their phone or their app that, oh my gosh, my app is going to tell me that I'm bad or I did something wrong. And there's this almost letdown and disappointment from that. And that's when we have to really examine our relationship to these devices. That's when this becomes really important. So a suggestion that we tell people when, especially when they're relying really heavily on these apps or these devices, is to make it work so that you're getting more in touch with your body in a way that you can do this. And you will use a sleep tracker as an example, but you can do this with any wearable. You wear the sleep tracker, whether it's an Aura Ring or a Whoop or an Apple Watch, for a week. Just notice how you feel. And then after a week, before you look at that app in the morning, before you open up your dashboard and see what your sleep score is, just check and see, how do I feel right now? How do I think I slept? Do I feel well rested? Do I feel really groggy this morning? Do I feel like, ooh, maybe that was like 4 hours of sleep and that wasn't going to cut it? Or maybe I got a lot of sleep and I feel really good. Then check the app. So when we're really disconnected from our bodies, oftentimes, and this is really common for so many people, oftentimes we miss our body cues and what they mean. So if we can tune in first, get really familiar with this feeling feels like, then look at the app and say, oh, this is what this feels like. This is what it feels like to not get enough sleep. This is how I feel in my body. Or, oh, this is what it feels like to feel really well rested. I understand this now. Do that for a few days. And then after a week, see if you can stop checking your score, relying on it as much, and instead relying on your own internal compass to know how you feel. And then you can make the choice if you want to continue wearing it or not. But you can do the same thing with continuous glucose monitors. People have gotten really fixated on those as well. See how you feel a couple hours after eating a food. Does it make you feel better or worse? Then check the app. And it becomes much more intuitive to connect into your body rather than having to rely on a piece of technology for the data.
That's right.
For the record, I don't use a smartwatch,
Okay,
but
well, that's the question that most of our members have actually asked us. And I would say that the majority of people, coming to us do use a lot of wearables. And again, why we've been asked to do this is you're getting out of touch with your body sometimes, and you almost have to look at whatever the wearable data is in order to like validate what you feel. So that's where it gets kind of problematic. It's like, well, I think I slept well, but the watch said otherwise. So, you're right.
right. That's absolutely right.
Okay, recoveries. I don't know why. I mean, it's definitely my fault with these pictures being very fuzzy when we made them bigger. But these, Roman baths, the modern baths that we have now. There's a couple of places in New York City that are like airy. It's called the AIRE. That's what my friends do. It's like bathhouse. Well, it's coming back, but ancient healing systems was all about the recovery. Somewhere down the line we forgot about that, but muscles rebuild after resting. It's why if you work out with a personal trainer, they usually don't have you do the same exercises twice in a row. And then, as you know, Maddie, we talk about this, the hormones stabilize when we stop.
Yeah, this is so common, especially, well, actually, I was going to say more with our female members, but it's both male or female. A lot of overexertion in general, and I am almost always, we are almost always telling everyone to do less.
Yeah, I mean, when people get the reports from our team, that's what I've consistently seen is it's like less is more.
Mhm.
So many, and that's the thing too. It's like giving permission to yourself to actually slow down in order to repair. This culture that we're in right now, which is go 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 all of the time, is really harmful. When you actually get used to it and you normalize it, and then eventually the body fails in one way or another.
That's right. Yeah, it's very common for people to feel like they have to be doing things all the time. And if you just do more of the right things less often, it will make your life easier and your results will be better.
Efficiency. Well, we've got this again. Recovery is key. That's how important it is. What's recovery, though? We talked about this when we were putting this together. It's everything. It's really tapping into nature. Your pulse, your breath, food, connection, community. We talked about life purpose and joy. That's what really recovery is. It's like this time to, there's a time to go, and then there's a time to take a beat.
That's right. Yeah, TCM is really big on incorporating emotional health and emotional well-being into our so-called biohacking experience, into our overall health. And the more we can lean into these healthy emotions of joy and, healthily expressing our anger and feeling our grief and being able to be creative and to process things and have intellect, the healthier our bodies will be. And we can't often really access those healthy emotions with more movement. When we're constant in a state of doing, we have to be more in a state of being for our emotional health to be more regulated. So if we don't create that space, we're missing even half of our health picture. So emotional health can really be accessed in our recovery stage.
That's right. Oh, we've got this one. Life hacks versus biohacks. So to that point, recognize it. So I would say, we work with a lot of people who are high achievers, right? They're doing so many different things. And there's this tendency also to be very data minded and be getting a little bit obsessed with it, right? So again, back to is the wearable owning you, or is it wearing you and you have to rely on it? And if that's the case, then maybe I went to an event in January and there was a basket at the door where they had this person. We all had to put our phones away. And if anybody had any trackers or anything, the phone got put. Nobody was supposed to look at anything except for the person in front of them and to be present. So it's just kind of a reminder sometimes. And these were people that were running big companies. And guess what? It survived. Everything survived for a couple of hours. We talked about this we had our longevity webinar back in April. We talked about this too, of like trying to do too much is actually like a aging accelerator. So each day, if you have big things on your plate, make sure it's only 1 to 3. It can and it will wait. So you write down all the things that you have to do, your big to-do list, and then cross a bunch of stuff out. And that leaves room too for if something happens that is not anticipated, and to allow for that flexibility. I mean, last week my laptop died. That was not fun. But to be able to immediately adapt and to have the resilience and to be like, okay, this needs to go off my plate today so that I can take care of this. But it's actually one of those ways that you're building the ability to really like have brain health. Also an anti-ager. So people who are doing all the biohacks in order to reverse their age and live forever, we forget that when the brain is stressed out and your nervous system is deregulated, it's going to cause you to age faster. Brain health is important. And then schedule in downtime and recovery time. So this is my biggest tip, is block it on your calendar. Everybody blocks their meetings. Very few people even block things like exercise unless you're going to a Pilates class or something. But we block so many things and we don't block 1 hour of nothing. Schedule it in. Meditation in the morning. I'm going hiking. Or just don't even say what it is, just blocked right on your calendar. It's okay. And it makes you prioritize that just as if it were as important as something else, because it is. I have tips too. I do this actually for email as well. Anybody who knows me, I usually check my email only a couple of times a day. I let people know that if they need to get a hold of me, they should text me or call me if it's an emergency. But for emails, I'll check them a couple of times a day. I'll check. I don't use wearables, but when I did, I would check it a couple of times a day, not every day, not on the hour, because it was more stressful. So consider doing things like that. And then, Maddie, I love this part. Ask yourself, are you looking for the data out of curiosity, joy, and happiness, or restriction and obsession? Do you want to know because it's like, I got to know, I've been not drinking for 2 days. Now I'm going to check my continuous glucose monitor and make sure that went down. That's very different than, hey, I'm feeling pretty good. And I think everything should be really stabilized because of these things I've been doing. Let me check it out. The attitude is going to make a big difference.
Oh yeah, the less we can hyper fixate on forcing our bodies to do something and fixing a body especially, the better off we'll be. The more that we can lean into curiosity about, what is my body saying right now and how might that be protecting me, and more understanding and appreciation, the better off you're going to be, and especially for long-term health. So, biohacking, the whole point is to be happier and healthier for longer. So sometimes we just have to develop different relationships with these tools than we think we do initially.
That's right. Oh, I love this. Oh,
Yeah.
no, this one isn't mine because my dots were in the red.
Yes, an elevated cortisol pattern. This one is someone who has been stressed for a really, really long time and their body is more in shutdown. So one size really doesn't fit all. And more of this approach that we saw in that first picture in the beginning on that left-hand side, more of what people say, I read in a study that this is what this is going to do for my health, and I'm going to do it without looking at my labs. These markers can really help us indicate why that may or may not work for you. And some of them are really simple that you can look at even through routine testing with your doctor, and some of them are going to be more complex that, we'd love to help you with. But white blood cells, if they're low, especially and you're dealing with something chronically, your immune system, really not a great time to throw your body into something that's a stressor. Sometimes even more supportive things like sauna can be really stressful for people who have more low immune system response. So that's something we definitely take into consideration. Hemoglobin, another one that you're going to see on your routine blood work. This is our oxygen containing molecule. And if our body isn't super oxygenated, oh my gosh, getting into a cold plunge, you're gonna have a really hard time warming up. So it can kind of defeat the purpose. Again, too much stress. We want to make sure that we're getting more ease, more expansion into your body so we get oxygen flowing rather than doing restriction. TSH, our thyroid stimulating hormone, our thyroid really rules our metabolism. So if your metabolism has really slowed down, again, a lot of these stressors really aren't going to feel very good. We want to be able to address your thyroid so it's working really well. Your metabolism is flowing first, and then you can optimize. So setting the foundations. HSCRP is an inflammation marker. A lot of the biohacks actually work quite well for this if it's high, but if it's too high, a level above 15 typically, that indicates cardiac inflammation. So no, I don't think we're putting you in a sauna or something really stressful that's going to really elevate your heart rate. That's really important to know. Homocysteine too is another inflammation marker that can be really related to sleep apnea. It can be related to nutrient deficiencies. So why don't we correct that first before we put more stress on your body? And salivary cortisol testing is this chart right here. So this is an example again of someone who has really lost resiliency at this point. And this is far more common than you think it is. There are a lot of people who are walking around totally functioning normally, who have jobs, maybe they feel a little bit tired and maybe a little bit disconnected from their bodies, that they're not even registering how fatigued they are. I would say more often than not, we're seeing pictures like this. So for this person, does it make sense before building them up and nourishing them to put them into more stressful situations? Of course not. We would never do that. So we got to know this picture to know. And our stool sample analysis. The gut microbiome and the brain connection has been so well studied at this point. We know that the vagus nerve it's a two-way street. Our gut communicates with our brain and our brain communicates with our gut. And in fact, the gut is often called the second brain. So if our gut microbiome is in really poor shape, if it's really stressed out, that's absolutely going to affect our brain chemistry. And this is well studied in TCM as well. This connection's really well established. So we want to make sure, like, do we have the ability when we're even utilizing these biotacks biohacks that our gut microbiome can handle the stress that we're getting put under so it doesn't affect our brain chemistry in a negative way. Can we establish, again, like, can we establish the foundations first before we go into these tools that we're just doing because someone said it was a good thing to do? So these are the markers that I would start looking at before we get into any like extreme biohacks.
And I can't help but thinking about one of our members who was like a professional, weightlifter, right? And but had really low cortisol, and it's like trying to add to her routine and trying to like add more and more weight and like do all these things and be an athlete. And then her labs were showing you got to slow it down. Maybe now is not the time. So we'll see stuff sometimes with people. It's just yeah, I mean, got to slow down or not. Sometimes it's the opposite, right? But again, one size does not fit all.
That's right. We just got to rule some things out first to make sure that you're in a good place to start optimizing. And sometimes you are, and that's really wonderful. It's a great place to be.
The validation that comes when you get your labs.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, absolutely.
I love this. I love this side. This is my favorite side, I think.
Yes, we just wanted to give some quick takes because often people, we in the health space in general, not just with us, people will say, what do you think about cold plunges? What do you think about vibration plates? What do you think about breath work? And the answer, annoyingly, is it depends. And so I just wanted to give a few like our quick takes, and a lot of them are it depends, but we'll give a little bit of context. Cold plunges, not with low cortisol. Men or women, doesn't matter. If you have a low cortisol pattern, you absolutely should not be in a cold plunge. I am more lenient with it with men, and with women, especially menstruating women. My answer is almost always no. You have to be in a really solid, stable place for me to feel like that is a recommendation that I feel comfortable giving. Breath work, a lot of, more breath work sessions, especially more intense breath work sessions like Wim Hof method, are becoming more and more popular. For some people, breath work can really spin their nervous systems out and cause flares of autoimmune reactions, of nervous system dysfunction. I was one of those people that it took a really long time to be able to safely do breath work. So if it's something that doesn't work for you, please don't force it. A lot of people don't talk about how breath work can be too stimulating for some people. So if that's the case, even something simple like box breathing is feeling like too much, listen to your body, don't force your way through it. So start small. If that's feeling pretty good, you can do a full-on Wim Hof breathwork session and see how you feel. But again, if a reaction's coming up, please listen to your body. Fasting for women, especially menstruating women, for me, it's almost always a no. Our women's hormones are way too cyclical. Women's bodies need much more stability. In menopause, more understandable, but a lot of other factors have to go in there. So that is super highly dependent. For men, generally much better tolerated, except for with a low cortisol pattern. That's when we want to avoid fasting. We just want so much stability. A lot of more of the medication supplement realm. Metformin has become really popular for people to take to regulate their blood sugar. This is very popular in the longevity space. High dose B1 is becoming even more popular, B vitamin, and even the GLP-1s, which we now know are like exploding in popularity. It doesn't necessarily really matter what you're choosing to do, supplement medication. Before moving forward, please just ask yourself, is this clinically indicated? For metformin, some people do use it for really serious diagnoses to be able to lower their blood sugar, and then that is clinically indicated. But what we're seeing and what studies are kind of proving is when we like too much of a good thing usually isn't a good thing. And when we're on these medications for longer periods of time, when they're not clinically indicated, something usually gives in the other direction. So let's just be really mindful about we don't really know the long-term effects of a lot of these things. Same with the P1s. We see that pretty often, that there's a lot of complications. There's a lot of people in the longevity space utilizing GLP-1s as more anti-aging. We don't have nearly enough information yet for me to feel comfortable even suggesting that to someone. So something to keep in mind, that might be something to consider before we jump on these medications. And is there another way to achieve the same result? Often we can through more of optimizing the body and optimizing the health. So your blood sugar is balanced naturally and we're losing weight naturally. So just something to think about. And saunas are typically the only recommendation that I usually feel really good about for most people. So my answer is generally yes, but start small. So I typically tell people start at 130 degrees for 5 minutes. You can increase by 5 minutes and 5 degrees over time. Sauna is something that you can do really regularly, even within like a daily experience, if that's feeling good for you, as long as you're hydrating and getting enough electrolytes. So sauna, super well studied, super safe. People often ask about, do we want to utilize infrared saunas or do we want to utilize more traditional based saunas? Traditional based saunas are more well studied. So I know the infrared saunas are all the rage right now, and I do like them as well. But if you had a choice, I would go with more of a traditional based sauna over an infrared. But yeah, saunas are typically pretty big goes for me, pretty big thumbs up for most people.
I think that's it. I think the next slide is just if you want to work with us.
That's right. Yes. If this is
If you have
something you,
questions, I can stop sharing. I'll just show you guys, of course. I know we have some members, but what's right for you? I mean, really, again, it comes down to everyone has very unique physiology.
yeah, that's right. Everyone does. And we'd love to be able to help you. If you find this space really confusing, if you're overwhelmed by the information, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm just so sick of the noise in this space. We'd really love to be able to be a really grounded voice, and be able to show you through your own body what might be best for you.
Yeah. And what do we do? And of course, our protocols, our biomarker testing, and then one-to-one concierge care for personalized reports. And we have some people who have already just run labs because they are biohackers, in which case they can book a functional lab review and get to know how we look at things.
That's
So
right.
definitely. I'm going to stop the sharing and we can have some questions. If anybody has any questions.
Yes, we are happy to answer questions.
No questions. I mean, I had some similar questions that were similar to kind of the longevity questions, NAD or what's it called, rapamycin, these sort of, but I mean, to me, it all goes back into what you just said. It depends on your labs. It depends on your physiology.
Yeah, of course it does. And again, we've talked about like the NAD plus. This is a really big supplement in the longevity space, and people tend to see a study or a couple of studies that are like, oh my gosh, this is the new thing. It's the miracle. Like everyone needs to be on metformin. Everyone needs to be taking NAD plus, and then more people start taking it, and then we start to see more problems. So the same thing with NAD plus. Julie and I have talked about this, and just for people, if you're curious, it can be really wonderful, and it's also very growth promoting. So if you have underlying conditions that you maybe don't want to grow, like potential cancers in the body, that's something that's really important to know. So this is why we can't just blindly take things. And studies are obviously so important, but they're also limited in so many ways. We don't see the nuances of how they interact with bodies, how they're interacting with what you're eating, your environment, the other supplements you're taking. So it takes a lot of clinical nuance to be able to figure out, what is the best approach for this person. So yes.
I like what you said about that too. I mean, somebody asked me just yesterday with my fibroid situation. They're like, well, how did that happen? Fibroids are, what was happening with me is that super high estrogen. So if I was doing some of these biohacks to increase my estrogen because of my age, it would have made it worse. So understanding your labs is it's so important. I mean, you can't convince me otherwise. That's why we built this. So I think it comes down to you got to really look inside of it. And to me, everything we're talking about today is the balance. This is the key. Like back to that, that first or the second side, that balance.
That's right. If we focus on promoting, again, two totally different mentalities. We want to focus on the body is so smart, the body is so wise. What can I do to bring balance my body? And I can trust it will take care of it from there. Versus, I'm going to give my body all these tools and hacks to outsmart my body's biology. I haven't seen it work out so well the other direction. But I've seen a lot of very happy people live until they're well past their hundreds who aren't doing any of that crazy stuff, who really focus on balance in their lives.
Okay, there's something in between though, the smoking, drinking, and
Yeah, you don't have to be that guy, but you can be something in between, or you can. I don't know. Maybe it'll work for you.
I'm going to choose happiness every day. And that's another thing too, questions that you've gotten, like, is it okay to have a glass of wine? Is it okay to have a birthday cake? And generally what I've seen is the recommendation is, yes, it's okay. Anything really in moderation. I mean, again, depending on your labs, but it's when we get really extreme and we restrict.
That's right.
And then you have no joy because you're at a birthday party, you're not allowed to have a piece of cake.
Yeah, it's a
That
sad
seems
time.
that just seems very sad. Very sad. Or another one was the supplements. I can't, because of course, it's like that, but some people that we know that have so many supplements that they're taking, their labs are actually pretty good. There's no like, chronic illness that needs to be treated right now. And it's like 150 supplements a day. Brian Johnson, what is it, 250 a day?
Yeah.
Your whole day is spent taking supplements.
Yeah, and yeah. I and this I think it's really important. I'm so glad we're talking about this because it's really important in that space. Like, and I obviously I don't know this person. I can't, from what I've heard from him speaking, and I'm making some assumptions here, that this seems to be his purpose. His purpose is to be able to extend his life, and this is what brings him specifically a lot, supposedly, joy. But for the average person, and I mean, for me too, that is not my purpose. So getting really clear on what your why is about, why you want to be doing these biohacks, like is it because you want to live an awesome life that feels authentic to you and amazing, then you're probably the approach that someone like that is taking is going to be different than your intention.
Yeah.
You might resonate more with being more relaxed and having more fun and having the cake at the birthday party because that's more in line with your values. So there can be some dogma that like an approach is right or wrong, but again, come back to your intention. That will tell you where you need to go.
Oh, God. Yeah, we love that too. And then a question I was actually asked today was, well, how does TCM work with the technology? I mean, are you guys completely against the technology? And when I was saying that, licensed acupuncturists can order labs and, review labs. And then if you've got functional medicine on top of it, there's nothing that says that, advanced biomarker testing is tech per se. It's just an insight into the body. And then it can, of course, work hand in hand with the Prenuvo scan and the other ways to really see what's going on. It's great. I really enjoy having the data. It's the balance of it. If it becomes obsessive, you have to get a scan once a month or what, that kind of thing. You end up churning out. You're not happy anymore. Now it's just about a data set, getting ahead of the data set.
Yeah, there's this saying in the community of acupuncturists who practice functional medicine as well that functional medicine helps us be better acupuncturists and TCM providers. That it's not the other way around. The TCM is the main philosophy that this is the OG functional medicine. It's a systems biology based approach. Functional medicine is a different way of looking at the same thing, but TCM is the core of the medicine. Functional medicine allows me to understand TCM better. All
Right.
it is depth in a different lens. So they absolutely work very hand in hand.
Well, 4,000 plus year old system and ancient wisdom, and making a comeback because it works.
That's right.
It works. It is the way that I was able to heal and the way that many people have been able to heal.
Absolutely.
Of course, they work together. Any other questions?
I think that might be it.
Skylar could join too, of course. If you guys have done our reports, you know that Skylar's looking at your nutrition from this, at people who ask about like, what should I eat? Well, do your labs. And then the wisdom from Skylar will come in for that.
That's right.
The report that gets into everything. your food, your nutrition, your stress, your sleep. It's all in there. Toxins.
Yes. Joy is a nutrient too.
Oh, that's right. You do say that. We're gonna have to put together a slide. So it's like Stacey Sim says, women are not small, and Skylar says, joy.
Yeah.
Like a meme, a Skylar meme.
That's right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining.
Thank you.
Have an option to book a free discovery call on our website. Please utilize that. If there is something that we can help you out with, especially this area of biohacking, we'd love to be able to point you in the right direction. Amazing. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.